Welcome all to DeFi Crypto and Airdrops. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and today we are going to be busting out into lesson 8 of uh, our DeFi Academy. It's kind of what I'm calling it tentatively. But what I want to cover in this episode is going to be building out a portfolio based on your risk tolerance. And actually, let me make sure you guys can hear me. Can Yep. All right, we're all good. Had to test. Got a new mic. Want to thank my boy Jeff. He surprised me with a really nice new mic. So hopefully you guys can hear me loud and clear. But what I was wanting to say was it's really important that once you start learning about DeFi and before you really start building out a portfolio, you need to understand what your goals are. I'm going to get into a couple of things before we get into the actual lesson, but I just kind of want to frame the conversation. So, two of the things are risk tolerance and your personal financial goals. So, with that, I'm going to get into a couple other things, and then we'll bust into the lesson. So, I want to thank the chat. All you that always show up, and support the channel. Johnny, Brian, Sack Nasty, always here. Jay, appreciate you, brother. I mean, I'm always seeing you on socials and liking and sharing stuff. Falco, Ellie, same. Ellie's always helping us out with the socials and whatnot. Hippie holder, Wispy, man, just the whole crew's here, man. I wasn't expecting this many people. I was just thinking I was going to be talking to myself, giving a lesson. So appreciate y'all. If you have any questions throughout this, please list them out, and towards the end I'll address those questions. But I want to make sure I stay on track, so I'm not ignoring the chat. I just want to make sure that I get through and make a very clear and concise lesson for those that are interested. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. I'm not going to talk too much about the markets. Anybody that's paying any kind of attention knows the markets are shit right now, and a lot of that has to do with the war. So anyway, we'll just I don't like to delve into politics too much. It's just I think we all hear enough about that. So this is our channel, DeFi Crypto Airdrop. It's the And then, of course, you have our brother channels, Blockchain Basement, with Drew and Isaac. They're really good at the news. If you want to, if you really want to get a deep understanding of the crypto markets, macroeconomics, what's affecting, the crypto markets, politics, the war, things like that. Drew does a really good job of, delving into the details of what's going on, both micro and macro. So, again, great channel over there. BitLab Academy. Kelly over at BitLab Academy is great with technical analysis. Even for DeFi, there is some technical analysis. I was just talking to a bunch of people in our Discord earlier, and we were talking about finding lines of support and resistance to decide what ranges we want to do on arranged liquidity pools. Again, really good skill set to have, even if you're not a trader. So, and then Discover Crypto. Of course, you got DZ, you got Josh, you got TJ over there at Discover Crypto. They do really great content over there. Everything from chart analysis to again, news, things like that. Really smart people. Josh has his finger on the pulse of politics. The guy is entrenched. He's always flying out to New York and down to Florida and DC, and talking with politicians and policymakers to find out what's going on and what is going to affect the crypto markets. So if you don't have time to do all this kind of stuff yourself, like this channel, learning DeFi, things like that, that's what this network of channels is about, is giving you a little bit of everything. And of course, I got my boy Jeff that always shows up with the alpha on these low cap gems that he's farming for airdrops. Again, he's the one that clued me into Plume and a bunch of other projects, well before the masses were talking about them. So shout out to Jeff. All right. So let's get into. Oh, here we go. So this is my X account. It's just veteran, the number 4 crypto. If you have any questions, I'm always willing to help people. If you want, you can join our Discord. This is our Discord over here, and we have a really good in our Discord that is great at answering questions. And also over here on the DIG is the Discover Investments group. That's where you can talk to Kelly about technical analysis every morning. Josh, Drew, or Kelly is in there, giving the alpha on morning trades, just doing quick scalp trades, things like that. They give analysis of your portfolio, a lot of really good content in there, and of course we're in there as well as news. All right, so let's jump into the little bit of news that I wanted to cover. So Alexander, if you're not following him, is really good with Base Network and Coinbase, Coinbase news. So just in, Coinbase seeks SEC approval to offer blockchain-based stocks. Anybody that's not paying attention, Coinbase recently announced in the past couple of days that they were going to start offering DeFi, so RWAs, liquidity pools, things like that, natively on their platform. This is going to remove huge barriers to entry for the average person that doesn't know how to use wallets and things like that to interact with DeFi protocols. This is huge. Base, I've always said, is going to be a monster when it comes to DeFi and RWAs, and it's starting to materialize. So what this screams to me is Ondo. Coinbase and Ondo have a partnership. Ondo has a huge partnerships with a lot of different projects, Plume being one of them, to where I really believe that Ondo is going to be the platform that is used to tokenize these stocks for Coinbase. This, I'm just purely going off what I just mentioned. I don't have any insider info or anything like that. I'm just going off of partnerships, fundamentals, things like that. So anyway, Aerodrome, slowly then all at once. Base. So this is a post from the official Base Twitter. So JP Morgan is bringing banking on chain. Let's bring it all up. I don't even want to try to pronounce that. So JP Morgan is launching JPMD, a USD deposit token for institutional clients on Base. It will be the first token of its kind on a public blockchain, enabling fast, secure, 24/7 money movement between trusted parties. This is big. Again, you're hearing Base. When all through the Bitcoin convention, you were hearing about DeFi and RWAs. It was supposed to be a convention for Bitcoin, and I think I heard them talk about DeFi and RWAs as much, if not more, than I heard them talk about Bitcoin. So, and we live streamed, the Bitcoin conference. So, they're in Vegas just recently. So, again, bullish for Base, bullish for Coinbase, bullish for projects like Aerodrome. So, again, Aerodrome is the one that posted that. Might end up being a part of that. Constellation Network. So for what seems to be an eternity, I have been stacking Paca, with my Constellation wallet, my Stargazer wallet, to hopefully get a decent swap. That's the ticker for the new DeFi protocol that's going to be launching on DAG. So supposedly, this is supposed to be happening soon. It says the countdown is on. Paca swap tokenomics are live. It's one step closer. Zero gas fees and governance await the DEX launch. Awesome. Hope to see it soon. The Genius stablecoin bill has passed the Senate. Next up is the House. If it passes the House, it's just a matter of Trump signing it, and we all know Trump will sign it. So basically what this will do is create a digital dollar. Some people might not like this. Some people might like it. It's going to happen. Stable coins, government-backed stable coins or, government-issued stable coins, they're coming. We basically have it already. If every time, everything in your account, in your banking account is ones and zeros. You go and you use your debit card and it takes it out of your account. Hardly anybody uses cash anymore. They can shut off your account. The government can shut off your account. Just, all the things that people complain about with, CBDCs. They can track what you're doing, where you're spending your money. They can shut off your money. All the things that people say that they're freaked out about CBDCs, we're already there. We already got the nanny state. We already got the surveillance. It's, we might as well get the benefits of, fast, efficient money. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. All right, I think the tokenomics look very solid. I really like that swap. Again, this is, that swap token that I'm hoping to get an airdrop from doing the, claiming on the Stargazer wallet. And it looks like there's going to be locking and voting, just like there was with, or is with Arrow, with the Aerodrome locks. So that's awesome. For nearly a week, this is bullish. So for nearly a week, Ethereum whales have been accumulating over 800,000 ETH daily. So you can see that there is mass accumulation of ETH right now. So this could be a precursor to the next stage of the bull market. We've been waiting forever. Bitcoin has kind of had its run. We've been waiting for the Bitcoin dominance to kind of drop off, so that, an ETH is going to be, kind of the trigger that's going to make that happen. Because if ETH starts outpacing and altcoins start outpacing Bitcoin, then the Bitcoin dominance is going to drop. That's basically all the Bitcoin dominance is its, its percentage of the total market cap of the crypto market. So, as ETH and alts gain momentum, the Bitcoin dominance is going to drop off. So this is the kind of thing that we want to see to start kicking off, the next stage of the bull market. So hopefully soon, because I've been stacking a lot of wrapped ETH with my KTA pool. I've talked enough about Packaswap. And then this, Jeff sent this to me. So actually, let's read what he said. How it started, how it's going. So how it started. Aerodrome will be the liquidity hub of Build on Base and an integral part of the Base ecosystem. Aerodrome is over 50% of all volume on Base. Aerodrome is a monster on Base. Base, in my opinion, is going to be a monster. I don't look at price. I look at fundamentals. I look at data. I look at who's accumulating. I look at who's buying. I, look at what's being built out, partnerships, fundamentals. That is what I look at when I am investing my money. I don't care if it's popular on social media. If you're looking to get in, get out, make quick profits, awesome. And that's the way to do it is, look at the narratives, look at what's being hyped up at the moment. I am a long-term investor. I am looking to, just like with DeFi, I'm not a day trader. I use DeFi because I like the slower pace. Again, we were talking about this in our Discord earlier. I like the slower pace. I can take my time. I can do my research, see where the volume's at, see where the APR is at. Volume equals fees. Fees equals my profit or my yield. And I just watch and I jump into these pools whenever they're ripe and I just reap the rewards. Happened with Plume, happened with KTA, and with our other pools. So again, it's important to understand the markets. So it will leverage an integrated public goods flywheel to empower base developers, community, and infrastructure. So that's how it started. Now, we will be integrating DEXs from Base directly onto the main Coinbase app. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning. Enabling Coinbase users to access and trade millions of assets on chain. Millions of assets. So that's going to be a mix of stocks, potentially bonds, treasuries, you name it. It's going to be tradable on the Coinbase platform. I have my issues with Coinbase. I think we all do. It loves to crash when there's high volatility or there's high volume. When I first got into crypto, I was buying Shiba Inu, and I was right about to sell, and with a huge amount of profit, and Coinbase went down. And I was new to crypto. I didn't understand how all of it worked, and I was freaking out. I'm like wanting to sell, wouldn't sell. And by the time it came back up, I got out with some profit, but nowhere near what I could have got. So I've learned my lesson. I diversified across other places. I have different on and off ramps. I'll get into that another time. But that being said, you cannot argue with how Coinbase has positioned itself. They've built out base, again, that's going to be a monster in DeFi. They are in the room when it comes to federal regulation, and they are going to help shape policy. It's just the way it is. It's happening. You can kick and scream. It's going to happen. All right. So that's it for that. So let's start jumping into this. Oh, all right. So we're gonna do my spin live. So here we go. Let's see what I get today. This is my plume spin. I'll get man, damn raffle tickets. Those shady ass raffle tickets. All right. So this is the plume portal. There's a lot of people right now that are kicked in the nuts when it comes to plume. They feel like that it's just going down, that it's a dead project, whatever. I've heard it all. Fundamentally, they are 100% wrong. If you just look at the price, everything's down right now. Everything's been tanking for a while. Plume has way too many partnerships, over 200 institutions and clients that are building out dApps, including Ondo and many others. You come here on their portal, and you got Blackstone, which is part of BlackRock, the largest amount of assets under management, or AUM. You got Credible, Superstate, Casu, Mineral Vault, Mountain Protocol, Open Trade. All of these. Morpho. You have Morpho on here. Nest Credit. There's just so many different dexes that are built out. There's 5 that I'm already using. I can go to my profile, and you can see just from doing the level up tasks, so that I can get more of the airdrop. You can see all the different little dust that I have in all of these different investments. This is all easily accessible through the Plume portal. It is the cleanest, sexiest access to multiple dexes that I have seen. Instead of having to go out to all these individual dexes, I can just come here to my portal, and it's almost like a DeFi aggregator. It shows all of my positions and all of my holdings across any of them, across all of these different dexes. And I can click on any one of them and add to any one of them from this portal, from this dashboard. It is, I cannot applaud this enough. I wish that more projects did this. So anyway, as always, I'm going to touch on DeFi Llama. If you don't have this bookmarked, bookmark it. If you want to be in DeFi, if you are in DeFi, I don't care. You need to have this tool bookmarked. It is the most important tool that you will use. So slide this over, and I have TVL and DEX volume turned on. So as you can see, as I slide this over, we are sitting at about 20 billion in across all dexes, across all DeFi. We have about $20 billion of daily, mind you, volume. Now, as far as TVL, we have currently about 200 billion in TVL. You can see the RWA TVL is ticking up. We can come over here to rwa.xyz, and you can see that it's just going parabolic. And what this is real world assets. This is the tokenization, like I was talking about before, with tokenizing stocks, bonds, treasuries, gold, silver, real estate, art, you name it. Anything that's illiquid, anything that you can't, that you have to like physically, buy and sell, and you have to go through intermediaries and call a broker, those sorts of things. That's what RWAs is going to get rid of. It's going to make it so that 24/7, 365, without any human touch, you're going to be able to buy, sell, trade any asset anywhere in the world. And then automatically it's going to ensure compliance with, regulatory authorities. So it's all going to be automated. It's going to be beautiful, beautiful thing. So anyway, again, this is a really great tool, gives you a lot of great analytics. You can come here, you can see Plume. So you can sort. So by RWA asset count, so the amount of RWAs that are on it. Plume just launched 2 weeks ago. It's already number 6. RWA, the total value, or TVL, you can see Plume is already number 12. It's climbing the charts. RWA market share, again, number 12. RWA holders, Plume is number 1. It's up 34,386%, from, because it, just launched. But again, number 1. Stablecoin asset count, number 8. It's top 10 on everything. Stablecoin market share. Where is it at? Sorry, getting an eye twitch. Number 15. Stablecoin holders. Again, 15. It's in the top 15, 10, or top 3 of every one of these. I don't know how anybody, and it's only been live for 2 weeks, and it's competing with the likes of Ethereum. I don't know how anybody can be bearish on Plume. If you're bearish on Plume, I'm done talking. I'm sorry, but you're not paying attention. You're way too emotional looking at the price is your problem. And trust me, it's just you, because if you look, there's plenty of people buying. All right, so let's get into the lesson. Enough of me yammering on about Plume and whatnot. All right, you know what? Let's go to let's see if we can answer a couple of questions real quick first. Yep, Plume is paying. Ellie, absolutely. Plume is definitely paying. Yield. Let's see. What is it paying right now? Yep, 160% APR right now. I've made $73.25 in the past 24 hours. Just on that one, on my one, just on this. $1,721.93. I've made $73.25 in the past 24 hours. Not a bad rate of return, if I say so myself. All right. Good evening, Johnny. Made 60 cents on Sol USDC liquidity. You know what, Sack Nasty? Don't fade that. It's a free 60 cents. If that was in an hour, or if it was in a day, soon that 60 cents will become, $1, and then maybe $6, and then maybe $10. It just compounds. So we all start somewhere, brother. Are the aerodrome pools in KTA paid in Aero only? It depends. So if it's on the aerodrome platform, it pays out in Aero token. You can then swap it into a stable coin or any other coin that you want. If you are on VFAT and you have your pool migrated onto VFAT, you can actually claim it. Here, I'll just show you instead of telling you about it. So you can see right here that this pool is a USDC Aero pool, and it's on Aerodrome. I can go over here this $32.66 that I got, I can go over to Harvest, and on VFAT, that's the great thing about DeFi aggregators. I can claim it in Arrow, Wrapped ETH, KTA, regular ETH, stable coin, Cake, USDT, Morpho. You can claim it in whatever you want. It just automatically swaps it for you. So again, great thing about VFAT. If you're not familiar with VFAT, I did a whole lesson on it in the DeFi Academy on how to use VFAT and the functionality of it. Again, I'm trying to make this as easy as possible for you all. All right. Wonder when Iran surprise will hit. Who knows? I don't worry about things I have no control over. I'm ready for whatever. Wispy, it's a pizza party, extra bacon. At J with a bunch of sweethearts. Ondo and Plume, absolutely. I'm bullish on both. ARX XRP DeFi. You're gonna have to tell me about that. I keep seeing that pop up on my X feed. So, oh no, hey, I appreciate you reposted the stream. But yeah, you'll have to tell me about what you guys got going on. I really, honestly, reach out. I'd be interested. I'm always interested in anybody that's promoting DeFi. As long as it's a solid, legit project. I personally don't do memes, but yeah, no, happy to hear about it. Let's see. Me Too staking. Base wants to replace Binance if they can. Honestly, they might be able to do it. They're really doing a really good job as far as building out the foundation for it. CDC going to be a big player. They love to F you with the fees and spot buys, the high cost of the day. Yeah, absolutely. Plume's platform is great. Yes, it is, Wispy. Let's see. Earn Plume and DeFi. Absolutely. I'm assuming all y'all are using a VPN on Plume. Unfortunately, yes. Until regulatory authorities can get their shit in one sock when it comes to DeFi and crypto in general. Unfortunately, we got to do what we got to do. It's me personally. It's until there's laws against it, I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah. Hey, Johnny, reach out to me. If you need some help, if you join the Discord, I have a video channel in there, so you don't got to click any links, and it just for your safety. You don't got to click any links. There's nothing malicious that can be done. Then you're talking to me, and we can search together. Find some pools that you like, and some assets that you like. Make sure that it meets your risk tolerance, all that kind of stuff. KTA still good fees. Price will come. Absolutely. Not worried about it at all. I've increased my earnings in a week from $1 daily to $10. That's fucking awesome, Brian. That's it. You just got to stick with it. Some days you're going to be getting a dollar. Some days you're going to be getting 10. Next thing you know, you'll be getting 100, then maybe 1,000. It's all about the slow and steady. Do not try to get rich quick. Build out, and we'll be getting into this, the portfolio build. I know it's taken me a while to get there. I just want to make sure that, you guys are getting the alpha. Got a pool migrated into VFAT. Awesome. Hey, Sean, how's it going? Welcome. I've seen you before, but welcome again. And yeah. All of my KTA pools are out of range as well. I'm just going to wait for them to come back into range because I know they will. And then I'll show you later on, kind of what I did to mitigate and make sure that I kept earning, KTA with all this volatility. All right. So with that, let's start the lesson. So forgive me. I have some notes. I like to use them so I stay on track. So there are two things that you need to assess when you're building out a portfolio. And those two things are your risk tolerance and what are your financial goals. So we're going to start with financial goals. So these are the four things that I came up with for financial goals. If you're looking for residual income, so if you want to build out a DeFi portfolio to earn yield that you can cash out, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, to, just augment your income. Maybe you're earlier on in life and you're a college student and you just need extra money to help, buy food and buy books and, all those sorts of things. Maybe you're later on in life in your 30s and 40s and you're just, trying to build a retirement, or maybe you're in retirement and you're, just wanting to augment your, social security and, whatever retirement you already have. You need to and set milestones. We were talking about this in the Discord earlier. My first goal, because of how much liquidity I had to dump into DeFi, I had 15 grand that I decided I was going to use to learn DeFi. I'm now up to 30,000. Even with all this dumping, I'm still up double. Even with all the dumping in the markets, over the past, since November, December. So that goes to show you how powerful DeFi is. But I digress. I made the goal that I want to earn $100 a day. So $3,000 a month, roughly, is what I want to earn as my first milestone. And I'm there. I just need to get to a point to where I can start scaling my portfolio into pools and lending and things like that, that make it a little more stable, because some days I'll make 500 and some days I'll make 30. So I want to get to where it's a little more stable. And so I need to adjust my portfolio a bit. But again, residual income. Next, build bull run bags. So again, I feel like we haven't had, alt season yet. So I'm still stacking KTA, Plume, anything else that I can think of, Ondo, all of these assets that I think are going to, pump during alt season. And that's what all of us, have been doing, that are talking in the Discord and that are in the community. We're building bags at the same time. And I'll show you some strategies here in a minute that's going to allow you to do some of these things all at the same time. DCA. There is no better way to DCA. I see it in chats all the time over on Blockchain Basement with, when I'm in the mornings listening to Drew, or I'm listening on Discover Crypto and things like that. People will be in the chat, saying, "Oh, I wish I had dry powder for this dip, and I wish I could DCA, and oh, I just bought this project or this project and DCA'd." And I wish I could just grab people and shake them and say, "Get into DeFi." With DeFi, you always have dry powder. And like with Uniswap and with VFAT and a lot of these protocols, you're DCAing with free crypto. So like if you're in an ETH USDC pool, you're earning USDC and ETH for free. There is no better price, as far as DCA to lower your average entry than earning free crypto. The only way it gets better if somebody pays you to take their crypto, which I don't think is going to happen. So this is the best way to build your bags into DCA is DeFi. So anyway, and then long-term hodl or hold growth. So, if you have Bitcoin bags that you just plan on never selling, or you're really bullish on a project and you just plan on never selling it, but you still want to leverage it to earn. Again, that's a financial goal. That's a way that you can use DeFi to stack those bags. One second. All right. So financial goals, that's the first step. Next is risk tolerance. What is your risk tolerance? The money that or the liquidity that you're using. I'll get to that. I'll get to that, Wispy, at the end. So risk tolerance. If you are later in life in retirement and things like that, you might want to lean more towards low, or medium risk. If you are younger and you have a lot of expendable income and, it's more of a casino for you and you're just looking to make, fast profits, and you're okay with if you lose that principal or that liquidity, then you might lean more towards the high. And, there's all kinds of, shades of gray in between. But me, myself, I tend more towards the low to medium, maybe a little more towards the medium. And the reason being is I'm set. I own my cabin. I built it myself. I own my property. I own everything that I have. I have no debt. I have my military retirement. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm giving you an example. I'm in a place to where I just want to build residual income. I don't care if it's $1,000 a month or $3,000 a month. It's free money. And so I just want to build that out and to where it just trickles in. If I use it, I use it. Me and my lady just had a great trip down to Southern California that I used my DeFi earnings to pay for. Flew down there, visited family, went to see the Shane Gillis, comedy show, went out to some nice meals, just had a great time. And it was all for free, basically, because it was money that I magically earned in DeFi. And so that's what I'm, trying to build out with DeFi. And if I don't use it, I just roll it back into DeFi and to grow my portfolio. It's a great way to do it. So again, this is the second question you have to ask is what is your risk tolerance? That is going to dictate what type of pools that you get into. If it's a full range or if it's a ranged pool, if it's lending, if you borrow against your lend or not, what type of leverage you take out. And I'm sorry if this is, kind of out of your range, if you're new to DeFi, I'm speaking to the group. If you take out leverage against your loan, if or you're lending. So if you're lending liquidity and so, so people can borrow it, so you can earn yield, you can actually borrow against it. But depending on the asset, if it's a a highly volatile asset, like say a meme coin, like if you found some place that you could, take out a loan on a meme coin, I don't know of any that I've seen, but if you could, a lot of volatility, and you take out a 90% loan to value and it drops more than 10%, you're going to get liquidated. You're going to keep that loan you took out, that 90%, but you're going to get liquidated and you're going to lose your collateral. So you need to understand how these things work before you get into these, more advanced, things. That's why I'm always telling people that are new to DeFi, start with staking, lending, and full range liquidity pools. They are going to be the safest bet for you. That's going to get your feet wet and you can branch out from there. But again, risk tolerance. All right. So low risk, that is leaning more towards stable returns, focus on stablecoin lending, RWAs, or full range stables, like I just said. Medium risk, accept moderate volatility, invest in blue chip tokens like Ethereum, Link, Bitcoin, things like that, or incentivized pools. There's like on Uniswap right now in our Discord, you can get a lot of alpha in there, and it's not all just from me. A lot of the people in there bring the alpha, and that's what we're trying to build is a community. And but you can earn 30% or more on your Bitcoin in like a USDC wrapped Bitcoin pool, and you can get a bonus of 30, 40, 50% on top of that that's paid out in the Uni token, the Uniswap token. So there's incentivized pools as well. So again, medium risk. High risk. So embrace high volatility, target speculative tokens like Plume, like KTA. KTA hasn't even gone live yet, so it's, highly speculative. They're claiming, and they did a stress test. I'm waiting for a third party confirmation, but they showed, if you believe, what they presented, that they did over 10 million transactions per second. If that is the case, KTA is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I'm willing to take that. So again, you know, just low, medium, and high risk. And then self-assess. You're and we're back. All right. So next, it's all about building cash flow. So going back to, let's see. So the like I was saying before, lending, full range pools, and RWAs, so that you just earn, very low risk, steady yield, are going to be your best bets to build out low. And that is your foundation. So let's go ahead and move these. Actually, this is what you want to build. This is what I'm doing. I'm not a financial advisor, so let's just start with that. Um, this is the foundation of my portfolio. Let me get rid of this. RWAs, lending, and full range pools. Now, and you know what? Airdrops. Let's just go ahead and do that because I am farming airdrops. So this is all very low risk, just like a little machine. You're building out a little machine, and this is the foundation that you're going to put that machine on. And so start looking at getting into lending, getting into full range pools, getting into airdrops. This is going to fuel, this is going to get you the yield that's going to give you the liquidity to do the, medium and high risk stuff without touching your principal. So if you have $1,000, if you have $10,000, if you have $100,000, whatever you have, this is where you want to start, is build it out in this. Then you're playing with the house's money. You're not risking your money. So the yield that each of these generates, that you used those to get into these ranged pools. Is that making sense? Like say something in the chat. Let me know if this is, if this is, firing with you. What I'm trying to say here. Because the odds of you losing your money in these types of plays is minimal. There is risk. Don't get me wrong. Protocols can go down. Even full range pools, it's DCAing you out, in and out of, the individual assets, to keep a 50-50 split, in that pool. But, you're still getting price appreciation and you're always earning yield. So again, lending, full range pools, airdrops, RWAs, over on the Plume portal, RWAs are things like this. This Solera Nest, you can get into, the treasuries vaults and the credit vaults and things like that, to where they have a lower rate of return, but it's steady. It's not volatile. You're not going to lose your ass. Nothing's going to, go to zero necessarily. You're just going to earn good, steady yield. And as that yield builds up, that is your dry powder. And with that dry powder, again, you can use to take, a higher level of risk, medium or high risk. And again, you're gambling with the casino's money. You're not gambling with your money. And of course, I'm always adding to my foundation. I always want to have, and you can look at percentages. So right here, you can see this is an example of a conservative income generating, basically framework. So again, you have this foundation that I was talking about with airdrops and, the lending and the full range pools, all of it right here, staking and delegating, full range pools, lending. All of this is feeding your account, your rewards and your yield. And it's just building up 24/7, 365. At first, it might be a couple $100 a month. Then it might be a couple thousand. Then you might get, to where you're making 10,000 or more. But this is what you use to open new positions or to compound back into existing positions, to put into your long-term hodl bags, to buy stables or convert into stables, to lock in towards the end of the bull run. This is what I'm going to be doing, is I'm going to be moving almost everything into stables to lock in the value. I am not going to round trip. I'm going to ensure I'm going to ladder out. And anybody that's new in the Discord, we have free tracking sheets to track your DeFi portfolio, to build your ladder out strategy, all of these different things. So make sure that you are taking profits along the way. Even if you don't hit all of your take profit points, at least you're going to hit some of them. My goal is to have $500,000, and it's a very realistic goal. I just need to 10x, and I'll have that, which I don't see it being an issue with the assets that I'm holding, plus the DeFi that I'm earning, the yield I'm earning. But that being said, I'm going to be 90% out into stables. I am going to keep 10% in certain projects that I will round trip. One of them is actually more than 10% is Arrow. I have in locks. I am super bullish on Arrow. I've gone over why already. I'm not going to get into it again. I'm locked for 4 years and I have no issue with that. I've gotten a lot of shit about it when Arrow took a dump, and I'm going to be laughing my way to the bank. I see what's coming. So those of you that have been doing the same, you know what I'm talking about. So again, with the stables, you can lend those stables out to earn yield. So just because I'm cashed out in the stables doesn't mean I'm going to be out of DeFi. I'm going to lend those stables out, across different platforms and in different ways. In the Plume portal, going to maybe have some on Coinbase earning 5%, might have some on Aave, just, Moonwell, all these different places. I'm going to have, maybe some stable to stable, stable and stable USDT, USDC liquidity pools, all of those. But because I'm lending them out, this is a conservative one, so I don't have where you're borrowing. But again, with all of this yield, it's looping back in to open new positions, to compound into old positions. Same thing, long-term hodl bags. I can DeFi those. I can lend out those assets. Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of those, through staking and things like that. There's a lot of different ways to earn. Same thing, that yield gets looped back in and feeds the machine. So the back here, this foundation just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it just generates more and more and more yield, which again feeds all this. I mean, it's like a snake eating its own tail. I don't know how else to say it. It's a machine that feeds itself if you do it right. If you build out the foundation right, you cannot get top heavy. If you start getting too top heavy, you might start losing money due to extreme and permanent loss, or getting involved in meme liquidity pools that go to zero. It's okay to use small bits of your liquidity to scratch that itch, but do not get away from keeping a strong foundation. Stay disciplined. Slow and steady wins the race. You're not going to get, I can't say you're not going to get rich quick. You're going to get rich quick compared to traditional finance, but you're going to see a lot of people, posting that they got rich on a meme coin, or they, made, 400% in 5 minutes on a short or a long, on a trade. Great. That's awesome for them. Amazing. I'm happy for you. But you know what? They're not telling you about the losses. There's one guy that keeps getting liquidated hundreds of millions of dollars because he's, daring, I forget his name. He's daring everybody out there, the whales to liquidate him. And he got liquidated. They came out and they liquidated him. So, yeah, I'm in for that. I'm not greedy. I'm okay with earning a couple of grand a month and just sitting back and, basically lending people money that want to trade, that, want to take out loans and, things like that. I'm more than happy to be the bank and just sit back, sipping a drink down by my creek, watching my account just grow. That's all I do is sit here at the cabin, learn about DeFi, do these streams, work on my property, take little trips and enjoy life. And I just watch money roll in. That is DeFi. All right. So I want to show you another. So here's an aggressive growth. So you can deploy into DeFi LPs, earn rewards, and basically do kind of what you were doing before, what I was showing before. You have stables. It's a different allotment. You can decide what percentage that you want to put into each of these legs, or each of these conduits. And but then again, when you get back into here, you start looking at, okay, on my HODL bags that are maybe more volatile assets, I'm going to lend those out like I was doing before. However, now I'm going to borrow, but because they are volatile assets, this is a little more on the aggressive side, but I might take out 30 or 40%. I wouldn't do that like towards the end of a bull run because, you're waiting for the market to crash. And, sometimes it's, up to 90% on some assets or more. So, you don't want to take out a whole lot of leverage, and it's always a good idea to have enough stables down here. So this strategy, you want to make sure the stables that you're lending, that you have enough on hand that potentially you could repay that loan or at least pay it down so you don't get liquidated. You don't want to get caught without dry powder because you might get liquidated. So, we'll get into this is a little more advanced. We'll get into this, later on. But my point is, you can lend it out. You can take out a loan against it. You can use that to redeploy into LPs. Earning on lending, you might be only earning like 5 or 6%, and you might be borrowing for as low as 6 or 7%. So it's almost a wash. You're earning almost as much as you're paying in interest. And even if it's a couple of percent difference, you're deploying that loan back into a liquidity pool that even conservatively, you can get in a full range Arrow USDC pool and consistently earn 30 to 40% and use that liquidity to pay down the loan. It's a flywheel. You're lending out, you're borrowing against it, redeploying into a liquidity pool to pay down the loan. It doesn't get more beautiful than this. So say you have $100,000 to lend. You take out 30 to 40%. That's $30,000 to $40,000. Let's make it more realistic for those of us that don't have a lot of money. Say that it's $1,000. You're taking $300 or $400 and you're starting a nice little liquidity pool. And you're using that. So say that, it's a KTA, one of the KTA pools. I know that I've doubled or tripled my money that I've initially put into KTA. So I could easily have come back, paid this off, and still had money left over. And I could have lent more out and leveraged up again. So maybe instead of just 300 or 400, now I'm taking 400 or 500 because I have more to borrow against. So my loan to value is the same. It's still only 30 or 40%, but I'm able to take out more money because I have more in there to lend. I hope that makes sense. So anyway, this is a way that you can kind of bump up and, leverage and grow your portfolio a little bit faster. All right. And what do we got here? And this is just another strategy that I got, but it's conservative, but it's focused on growth. So you're not going to take any money out. You can see in this last one, it was, I wasn't cashing anything out, but this first one, you can see down here, I'm cashing out 20%. So 30% is going into opening new, or compounding back in, 20% into hodl bags, 30% into stables, and 20% I'm cashing out. So that might go into whatever. That could go into just stables that, sit in a wallet. That could go out into fiat, to that, you might use that 20% to pay down your car note or to help pay your mortgage or to buy groceries, whatever. That's what this one's for, because you're generating income. That's the whole point of this model. These other ones, they're not taking anything out. So, you got your, 30%, 30%, 40%. You're just trying to aggressively grow your DeFi portfolio with this one. And then of course this one, again, is just a growth focus. All you're trying to do is just grow your DeFi portfolio as much as you can to meet those goals we talked about. If it's $100 a day, if it's $1,000 a day, whatever your personal goals are. And then, once you grow your portfolio to where it is where you want it to be, and you've mitigated the risk, because, you have a good amount of stables. If the markets crash, that you are still able to meet your goals, like say that you have a bunch of long-term hodl bags and you end up having to round trip those, and your, liquidity pools, they crash, the volumes go down because all, retail exits the market. And so the volume isn't there. Are you still going to have enough to keep up and meet that goal? If it, again, is it $100,000 a day? That's why I'm cashing everything out in the stables, is I know for a fact that I can earn 5 to 10% at a minimum. There's a million different places you can do it. So if I have $500,000, 10% is $50,000 a year. $50,000 a year divided by 12. I'll do it real quick. I'm not a savant. I can't. So 50,000. That's why my goal is 500,000 divided by 12. That's $4,166 a month. That just earning 10%, which is super freaking easy in DeFi. So if I'm all out in the stables, if I have $500,000 in stables, then I'll earn 4,166. Of course, a chunk of that's going to go to taxes. Uncle Sam, he's been schooling me on DeFi and teaching me how to do all this, so that he deserves his cut. I'm being sarcastic. But yeah. So I figured that take $1,100-$1,200 off of that. That's $3,000. That's that $100 a day that at a minimum that I want to earn. Now I can take that, if I'm earning that each month and I'm not spending it, because I'm just hanging out around the cabin or whatever, I can take that and it's the house, it's the casino's money, and I can deploy that 4,000 or more a month into some high risk shit that or some medium risk, and rinse and repeat. I've locked in $500,000 in stables. The only way I can lose that is if I do something stupid. I've locked that in. Now whatever I generate. And of course, after the market dumps, if we go into another bear market, after that year of dumping and, we start getting back towards the bottom and I start seeing good opportunities. Yeah. I might, take $100,000 and start deploying that into, DeFi plays that are going to earn me, 50, 60, 70, 80% or more. And what I earn from that, I'm going to put into these models, whatever it is I'm trying to do. If, because I'm going to try to, regrow another medium or high risk, portfolio. Because I've locked in, $300,000-$400,000 that is making me that $100 a day again. So I take $100,000, redeploy it, and instead of the 15 that I started with this time, now I'm starting with $100,000. So, plus, of course, the other foundation that I have. So God only knows, if I can churn 15,000 into 500,000, imagine what I can do with 500,000. That's compounding yield. That's the power of slow, steady compounding yield. When you're rolling it back in and you're building out your portfolio properly, that's the key. Do not get greedy and do not start chasing APRs. I did it at the beginning and I've toyed with it to see what works. I look at volumes. Volume is what earns you fees. It can be 10,000% APR. If there's no volume in that pool, you are earning 10,000% of nothing. If it's generating $100 in fees, you're earning your portion, of the liquidity pool. If you own 1% of that liquidity pool, then you're going to get $1 out of that $100. And that's if you own 1% of that liquidity pool. That's on some of these pools, that's a lot of money. So it doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter what the APR is. The APR is an indicator, but volume is what you want to be looking at. So anyway, let's see if there's any questions. Get your questions in. All right. So Wispy, what's the address of the plume pool y'all are in on? Get your questions in the chat. I want to make sure I get to all your questions. So let's look at that. So let's go over here to my pools. So you can see my plume pools are in range. The APR is sucking right now. But again, I've earned in the past day over $100, 35 bucks here, 73 here. That's over $100. So all of that, because it's on Uniswap, is in USDC and Plume. So again, I'm just stacking yield, stacking dry powder. So let's click on it. And I'm showing you how to get there too. So, and I'll click on this. And it will take us to the main slowly, but it will take us there. All right. So this is how you get to it. Is you go up here, click on search tokens, and just type in Plume and you'll get it. Boom, there it is. And again, here's the address. So you just hover over it. The little copy button pops up. You just copy it. And this is how, and I'm gonna do this real quick because Ellie in the Discord was trying to figure out ranges and stuff like that, and she did a great job. She shared her ranges and she did a great job. But I want to show you all something real quick. And I covered this in the DeFi Academy, on the episode where I talked about DeFi tools, Dex Screener, and DeFi Llama, and a couple other ones I covered. But so again, you come here, wherever, whatever platform you're on, you copy the pool address like we did. So up here, damn it, copy. All right. Come over here to Deck Screener, click in the top left on search, you paste it into here, and it will pop up. So you can see here, you have the V3 and the V4 pools. They're all the same. Click on, well, they'll all take you to the same chart. All right, so I like using the 1 hour or the 4 hour. When it comes to DeFi, this isn't day trading. This isn't scalp trading. You're not looking at the 15-minute, you're not looking at the shorter time frames. You want to look at longer time frames because you're wanting to find the period of time that it was in a range. A longer period of time it was in a range. So on Plume, you can look, like everything else, it's been slow trickling down. So right now, my pool, I have set at 8 cents just because if you scroll back, since this pool started, at one point, we wicked down to 9 cents where we're at now. So I went a little bit lower than that and I picked 8 cents because I wanted to make sure that if it wicked down, that I stayed in range. Now, the other part of my range is 15 cents. Super wide range. Again, I like to not worry about my pools going out of range. I don't like super narrow ranges where I make, a good chunk of money fast. If I want to make a bunch of money fast, I'm not wanting to be in DeFi. I'll go and try my hand at day trading and, take out leverage. I'm here because I want to go to sleep and sleep soundly, knowing I'm just making steady money. I want to be working around the property, doing stuff like this and just know that I'm earning money. So again, 15 cents. So I'll take this one, I'll drag it down to 15 cents. And that was, you can see, this is what I was talking about with that hillbilly TA. You can see at 15 cents, that has been both at one point a line of resistance where the price was trying to get above that level. It broke above it, came back down, tested it, broke back up, came down, back up, played with it a little bit, came down, back up, bounced, and then trashed back down below it. So you can see that is a level of both support and resistance at throughout the life of this pool. So that is why I picked that. Now, once it goes back up and goes out of range to the upside, I'm going to be getting price appreciation on the way up because I'm going to be getting DCA'd out of Plume because it's a Plume USDC pool. As the price goes up, it's going to start selling my Plume. At the bottom of my range, I'm going to be all in Plume. At the top of the range, I'm going to be all in USDC because it's DCAing me out of Plume into USDC. So I'm not getting full price appreciation compared to hodling, which is what impermanent loss is, but I don't care because all this time since Plume came out, I have been earning yield. And as long as I'm like I said, I'm looking for residual income. I don't care if I missed out on some because I have hodl bags of Plume. I don't care if I missed out on some price appreciation. I still have that principle. And when it goes out the top, I'm going to rebalance. I'm going to take that, profit, all that USDC, and I'm going to re-enter and rinse and repeat. As it ranges, I'm going to earn more yield. As the price goes up, I'm going to get some of the price appreciation. As it DCAs me out of Plume again, back into USDC. And as the markets are pumping, I'm going to be setting wide ranges to make sure I stay in range longer. And, as I'm bleeding those profits off, I'm going to be, either putting them into Plume or other assets letting those appreciate, hodl those, letting those appreciate. And then eventually, when I feel like we're getting, later on in the bull run, I'm going to start converting that. And, as I start hitting my ladder out points again, that I've built out in that spreadsheet that we offer for free, in the Discord, then I'm going to start laddering out and selling those tokens into stable coins. You have to come up with your strategy of what you're going to do before it happens. Otherwise, you're going to get caught up in the emotion. You're going to hold on just a little bit longer to make that little bit of extra money. And next thing you know, you're going to be round tripping your bags. So sorry, Wispy, I got on a little bit of a rabbit trail. Those of you that watch me know I get really excited about DeFi, but that is where you get the address of the Plume Pool. All right. Fabio, which network does Plume and USDC need to be on to create a pool like this on Uniswap? So on Uniswap, it's on ETH mainnet. However, with the Plume portal, there is ways that you're going to be able to DeFi your Plume on the Plume network. So as you can see, I've already moved 11,360 Plume over to the Plume network. So I have $1,000 worth of Plume on Plume because I plan on using that to start to grow a DeFi portfolio in the Plume ecosystem. And I'll be adding to that. And of course, as the price of Plume pumps, then, this dollar amount is going to pump as well. So anyway, that's that. Let's see what else we got here. Nice. My boy Jeff reposted the stream. Yeah, make sure that you're like, share, and follow. We really want to get the word out on this. As always, me and Jeff, we do this for free. We do not get paid by any project to cover them. We do not get any tokens. The only tokens we get are from his airdrops, and anybody can get those. We're not incentivized in any way. We don't have sponsors. We don't ask you for super chats. We don't want your super chats. We don't ask you for memberships. We do not ask for anything. We just understand the pain that of trying to learn this stuff on your own. I had to learn DeFi pretty much on my own. There is some channels out there that I looked at, but they're so far along. They're dealing with millions of dollars, and they're talking at such a high level. They almost, I don't want to say this to make it sound like I'm talking shit on them. They talk at such a high level. I think they've forgotten what it's like to get into DeFi, to not understand what is impermanent loss, to not understand what is a range position, just the basics. And so there was nobody out there teaching the basics. And so that is what we're trying to teach here. We're trying to keep it simple. And that's why I built out the DeFi Academy. So if you're new to DeFi, please go to our channel, subscribe to the channel, and for free, go through the course. Each episode builds on the previous one. It's the same, it's a classic teaching style. It's what we did in the military. You crawl, walk, run. The first one, I teach you the basics, teach you the terminology, how it all works. Next one, we start talking about wallets, how to use wallets to interact with the protocols, all that kind of thing. So if you have any questions, you have the Discord. I'm in there all the time. Happy to answer questions. All right. Oh yeah, Jason Wynn. That was the guy that was telling everybody to liquidate him. Sorry, the tab next to place. Interested in staking. If you're interested in staking, Ben, there's a lot of places that you can go do it. So, I mean, you can do it natively, a lot of protocols or, chains, you can do it natively on their platforms, things like that. I'm doing it with Casper, CSPR. I've been, bullish on it for a long time. Not saying run out and grab it, definitely not shilling my bags. But I really like the project, and so I've had mine staked, earning 16% for years now, and I've used some of that free yield that I've earned. That's what I cashed a couple $1,000s out for to get into the KTA pools, to beef up my KTA pools. Which network does Plume? Okay, I already answered that one. Best place to lend your USDT, Maximus. Uh, that's a tough one. So there's a lot of things to look at. Which platform is the most trustworthy? I would say Aave. You can go to a lot of other platforms like that are up and coming, but have some good backing. Moonwell, has some options there. I do believe Morpho has some good ones, I believe. But yeah, there's a lot of places out there you can go. But if you're just looking for a really super, simple lending, probably, Morpho or Aave. Aave again, being the biggest, they have the deepest liquidity, the most TVL, things like that. So, that's probably your best bet. Jay, hold on. Let me get a drink of water. Getting a little hoarse. Would you mind going over depositing the NFTs on VFAT just so I know I'm not doing anything dumb? Absolutely, Jay. All right. So over on VFAT, so you can see up top here, I have a USDC Arrow, liquidity pool that's actually on Aerodrome. So VFAT detects it, but it's not down here with these. These are actually on VFAT. And again, this is in my VFAT tutorial. That is, I believe, like episode 4 or 5, again, in the DeFi Academy. It all comes back to the DeFi Academy. But this is the ones that are actually on VFAT. This one here isn't. If you go up here, you can see it says migrate. Now, you can claim or you can migrate. If I want to bring it over here, because on Aerodrome, you don't have a lot of these options. I can't just simply increase the amount of liquidity in a position on Aerodrome. And they're always making updates, and I haven't looked recently, so they might have changed it, but you can withdraw, of course. Compounding, last I looked, you couldn't, and harvest, you can on Aerodrome, but there's some automations. You can auto compound, you can auto harvest, things like that. You can't do that. There's not any automations on Aerodrome as of right now. So that is some of the reasons that you might want to come over to VFAT. You can also expand it out. It gives you a lot of data, a lot of analytics. It even shows how much rewards. So like right now, I have 952 USDC and I have 1,269 Arrow. That's worth $949. Again, pretty much an equal amount, dollar value of each. And I have 45.10 or $33.74 of Arrow rewards. So, it just gives you a lot more information. But yeah, all you have to do is just click this migrate button. You click the migrate button, a window will pop up, where you have to authorize it and sign it and all that stuff, because it's on the base network and, all that jazz. Minimal fees. You're not going to have any issues. Bing, bang, boom. It's on VFAT. It's that simple, Jay. Nothing crazy. Rich J, what's up, brother? Exodus wallet has a lot on it for staking. Good alpha. I appreciate it. Exodus wallet. Actually, we'll take a look at it real quick, and then I'll go over my portfolio because I like to be transparent. No, don't want to be listening to somebody that's not knee deep in DeFi themselves. All right, so Exodus wallet, huh? Let's see what's up with the Exodus wallet. All right. Mobile wallet, desktop wallet, Web3, Ledger hardware, Tether, earn crypto rewards for staking. Let's see what they got. Easily claim and manage your rewards for multiple assets. All right. All right. So you got Injective, you can earn 14%. Tezos, you can earn 3%. Kava, 7.62. Algorand, 7.58. Axelar, 7. All right. What do we got? All right. So there's some options. Matic, Axelar, Kava, Tezos, Injective, Algorand, Atom or Cosmos, Vet or VChain, Aptos, Cardano, and Solana. And that's kind of cool. You know, they have this little staking calculator. You can click on Solana, say that you deposit 1,560 Sol. Holy shit, it's $232,000. I don't think it. I know I'm not depositing that. And then for 12 months, oh, potential reward. Okay, so yeah, you just put however much you're going to deposit, however long you deposit it, and it tells you potentially what you could earn. Pretty straightforward. No, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and I know that Ledger, you know, they have some you can stake in there as well natively, and it's always a good idea when you can to stake natively. You know, reason being is then it's not on a platform. A lot of people, like with Celsius and things like that, they put their assets on the platform, and when the platform went down, their assets went with it. So, you know, non-custodial platforms are really, really good. If you can find them, you know, they're out there. But yeah, you know, it's you know, all these different things are important to understand and learn and do your own research on before you start putting your liquidity on platforms. A lot of people ask me why I'm always talking about, you know, Aerodrome and Morpho and Uniswap and Pancake Swap and stuff like that, and not, you know, some of these smaller protocols that are offering higher APRs. Reason being is they don't have the TVL. They don't have the total value locked. They don't have the deep liquidity. So potentially, you know, if there's an exploit or a hack or something like that, they can't rebound from it. You know, recently there's been some protocols that have gotten hacked, and they had the deep liquidity and they had the assets to mitigate that, to ensure that people got their funds back. That is important. And, you know, that's why I stick to larger, well-backed, well-funded platforms. Am I not getting, you know, as high APRs? Am I not, you know, earning as much fees? Potentially. But again, back to the lesson, risk tolerance. You know, can you use some of your liquidity and, you know, do a higher risk play on a smaller platform, and, you know, maybe, you know, as you're earning yield, be taking it off that platform and just using it as a you know, yield farm? Yeah, you can do that. It's just, it's all about your risk tolerance. You know, what are you willing to lose? So everything goes back to, you know, what we talked about in the lesson. You know, what are your goals? What are your financial goals? We'll just go back to it. Do We'll do a quick recap. All right. So to recap, this is what the lesson was about: is building out a portfolio. And before you do that, you need to ask, what are your financial goals? Am I looking for residual income? If so, what is a realistic goal for, you know, for a first milestone? You know, if I'm starting out with, you know, $15,000 like I did, my first goal was I want to get to, I'm making, you know, $100 a day. If you're starting out with more, maybe you have a higher goal. Maybe you want to be making $1,000 a day or $10,000 a day. You know, and it's okay to set multiple goals. You know, once, you know, I've reached 100, now I want to get to where I'm making $500 a day. And so I'm constantly tweaking and figuring out, you know, how to, you know, tweak my portfolio and without messing with my foundation, mind you, because I'm always adding to that. The bigger your portfolio gets, you don't want it to get top heavy. As you're building out, as you're taking, your profits from your foundation and from, your ranged pools and, your borrowing and things like that, and you're starting to get, building out the top end of your portfolio, you constantly want to be making your foundation stronger. So you always want to be growing that foundation because that's what's feeding the upper part. If the upper part crashes, because it's going to be because you don't have that strong foundation that's feeding it. If you get too small on the bottom and you get top heavy, it's going to topple over on you. Build out that nice, strong base. Build out on top of that. And as you're building it out, again, that's why we have these, is you're looping back. As you're earning in these, you're opening new positions and you're compounding this foundation right here, opening new positions and compounding this foundation. Because as you're growing this, if your total foundation with all of your staking and delegating, your full range pools and your lending are making you $1,000 a month, just for a nice realistic number. As you're building this out, if you keep feeding back into it, at some point you're going to be making $2,000 a month. And that's going to allow you to grow the top end more. And as you're doing it, you're looping it back in again till you're making 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, and it just starts ticking up, and it just becomes a beast to where it's like, yeah, you might have only made $1,000 a month at first, but over time, because you have a healthy portfolio and you took care of your yield farm and ensured that you kept the fuel that, the machine that's fueling your portfolio strong, then it's just going to continually grow. Don't get greedy. In closing, don't get greedy. Build your foundation. If you're already, going, stop. After we're done here, I want you to go and look at your portfolio and gauge it to what I just said. Make sure that you take some of your liquidity, get into some lending, get into some full range pools, and ensure that if all of your range pools and any degen moves that you're doing in DeFi, if they just disappeared, are you still going to be in a decent position to where you can rebuild? That foundation, it's still there. The house got blown away. Hurricane came, DeFi protocol went down, took all your money, but you still have that foundation. Can you rebuild? Are you in a better position than you were when you started? That's the question you need to ask. So with that, I'll show my portfolio real quick. So this is what I got when it comes to two of my plume pools. I have a couple, but again, this one, nice wide range, 8 cents to 15 cents. I don't see going out of range, but if I do, so be it. I will not rebalance it. But I've been earning great fees. Again, past 24 hours earned me 73, almost 74 bucks. Past 24 hours, I earned 35 bucks on 680 bucks. This one's a full range. It doesn't matter what the price does. This one's always earning 24/7, 365. Doesn't matter what the price of plume does. Again, foundation. All right. Then over to here. Here's my two arrow pools, both full range positions. Again, foundation. They're just ticking along, earning 40% APR. Nothing crazy, but 40% APR. That's strong for an investment. And again, I don't have to worry about price. You can see here, it just says active. It doesn't have a range. That means it's a full range pool. I've earned, in the past week or two, I've earned $33 on $1,900. And I've gotten some price appreciation because Arrow's been pumping a bit. This one I got $3,000 in, and I've earned $52.62. So about, 80, $90 or, $85 that I've earned off these two. Again, free money, just trickling in. Again, foundation. I got these KTA pools that I've been peeling off profits into HODL bags and things like that. And so there's that. Then there's this. I have another, because those KTA pools kept going out of freaking range. I decided that I'm going to try out with $500. I put it into a KTA wrapped ETH pool, but because it's on Beefy, it is automated. So I'm testing this out for the community, and I'm going to report back to you. KTA wrapped ETH on Uniswap, same pool, but this is automated on Beefy. It auto rebalances. If it goes out of range, it auto rebalances. See, it claims it's making 31,418%. No, it is not. I guarantee you it's not. Let's click on it, see what I got so far. It's thinking about it. All right. So this is a cool thing about Beefy 2 is it's a DeFi aggregator, and it just has a lot of this really cool functionality. Again, I don't know why Aerodrome and Uniswap and stuff don't take a freaking lesson, but this is why I love DeFi aggregators. Again, in the DeFi Academy, I go over DeFi aggregators and what they are. But you can look and you can see this is the historical rate of return, shows the APRs and all that stuff. Shows the max price. You can look at APY. You can look at the chart on APY, TVL. What's the price been doing? You definitely want to make sure that the TVL is going up. It shows that it's a healthy pool. You can look at the price. Obviously the price has come down on it. But anyway, there's that. But you can see it even shows my P&L, my profit and loss. Down overall $67 because the price of KTA and ETH have gone down. So to be expected. But when those prices go back up, then of course my P&L will go the other direction. And then fees. You can see that over time, this is the fees that I've been earning in wrapped ETH and KTA. It's not much, but this is on the day. So I'm earning. Let's see what we got here. About $7, but it's auto compounding because it's automated. So it's automatically redepositing that back in to my position. So everything's automated on here. I don't have to worry. It's almost like having a full range pool, but you do have more exposure to potential impermanent loss. Again, not something I personally care that much about. I'm just looking at growing bags. I track token count. I don't track dollar amount as much, or I don't put as much weight in the dollar amount. As long as I am earning more tokens than I'm losing, then in my mind, I'm good. Because when the markets do pump, I'm going to make more money than I would have. So you have to kind of change your mindset. And that's why I get so frustrated on social media and stuff. And you probably see my posts where people will say, oh, Plume is a trash project because look at the price. It's been, plummeting and, it's down, 50% in the past couple of weeks. And I try to explain to them, if you focus on price, you are almost always going to get wrecked. Look at Bitcoin. A perfect example. It's it's gone up and down, and people have gotten fudded out. Ethereum, almost every project. People have gotten fudded out of projects because they've watched the price. You need to look at fundamentals before you get And actually, this will be the last thing I cover because I'll talk forever if I don't cut myself off. This is the DeFi rules. And again, I didn't come up with this. One of the channels that I watch to learn is Crypto Labs Research. Great group of guys. Actually interviewed the founder, Lucas. Really cool guy. He has made a ton of money in DeFi. He owns a Ferrari, I believe it is, a really nice Porsche, a bunch of really cool cars and stuff like that. Lives up in Canada. Won't hold that against him. But yeah, anyway, they came up with these. So this is basically how you choose liquidity pools. And first and foremost, you need to believe in the assets. You need to do your frickin' research. Don't just look at an APR, and the volume and ape into something. Look at the project. Is it a good, does it have good fundamentals? Is there a good team, a fully doxed team? Look at the tokenomics. Look at who's investing in it. What is the use case? What pain point are they trying to address? Is it cross-border payment? Is it tokenization of real-world assets? What is it that they're doing? Is it a pie in the sky, freaking thing? Are they saying that, it's a token that's gonna, get us to Mars, or they're gonna tokenize freaking sex, whatever it, something stupid, it's that's why I don't do meme pools. It's not, and the reason being is I don't want to hodl that asset. If it drops out of range, if it plummets, like I said, when I was talking about those ranged pools, if it goes out the bottom, like with the Plume USDC, I believe in Plume. At the bottom of that range, I'm going to be all in on Plume. Am I comfortable hodling that Plume until the price comes back up? That's what you need to ask yourself. Is it an asset that I'm willing to round trip? If you don't get out before the market crashes into the bear, are you going to be comfortable hodling that asset through the bear market or taking a loss on it? That's what you need to ask yourself. After that, look at the TVL. Does it have $250,000 or more in TVL? Reason being, depending on how much liquidity you're entering into that pool, you might want to have more than that because of slippage. Entering and exiting the pool, if there's not enough liquidity, you might take a hit. You might not be able to get all your liquidity out. If there was a bunch of liquidity and everybody exited and you're the last one, at the buffet, you might not get all your money out. Just something to think about. 24-hour volume. Again, you want it equal or greater to the TVL. Higher the volume, the more fees you're going to earn. I look at volume almost more than I look at APR. Just the way I operate. Because I've been in pools where it says, like that one, it was just trying to tell me that I was making, what was that crazy APR? No, one of them was saying, oh yeah, the KTA wrap ETH was saying I was making 10,000, over 10,000% APR. I guarantee, $500 making $7 in a day, or making $5.58 in a day. That's not 10,000% APR. So yeah, it's a high APR and I'm making good money, but I'm only making money when people are swapping between the assets. In this case, KTA and wrapped ETH, or from wrapped ETH to KTA. That's why you need to have each of those assets, in that pool, is because you are facilitating people swapping between those assets. And when they do, like when you go to a DEX or something like that, and you do a swap, like on Aerodrome, you're paying a small fee. These liquidity pools are what's facilitating that. And that's how you're earning the fees. All right. So last couple ones and we'll cut this. Trusted DEX, I covered that. That's why I stick to Aerodrome, Uniswap, Aave, Pancake Swap, things like that. Is my liquidity is going to where I feel it's safest. I'm not going to a fly-by-night DEX. Do with your money as you will. This is just what the rules I live by. I usually like to get into pools that are trending sideways or up. So if they're like, I'm always saying, in DeFi, we're almost always earning. It doesn't matter if the market's going up, if it's going sideways, if it's going down. If you build the right portfolio, and we've just got done doing an hour and 45 minutes of talking about portfolios, it doesn't matter what the market's doing. If it's going down, if you're in full range pools and lending and stuff like that, doesn't matter. You're still earning. Your principal, the value of your deposits going down, but it will go back up when the markets turn around. Nothing to worry about. Just don't exit and lock in those losses. Just sit there and just keep earning yield. When the markets turn around, you'll make it back. If it's trending sideways, freaking beautiful for your range positions. You have your foundation. No matter what the markets do, you're earning. Again, that's why you have the foundation. Now, when it's ranging sideways like this, you can see this whole time. Like if you were in a ranged position, let's go to the 1 hour. So back here, say that you were set a range like this. Again, lines of support and resistance. Say you were in this range between the gold bars this whole time. So back in 17 March, so March, April, May, June, for 3 months, if that was your range, for 3 months, you would have been in range, except this little anomaly here. You would have been earning this whole time, like me and the DCA community. Ellie, Jay, all of them that are in the community, a lot of them, joined, within this time frame, and they were stacking plume. And then we found out about KTA, and we got in that, and it was ranging for a while. When the markets are moving ways, we're still earning. Foundation, no matter what the market's doing, earning. Sideways, again, you have range positions. You're earning the whole time it's ranging sideways. And then, if we're pumping, everything's making money, and it's a beautiful thing. So, and all the yield that you earned the whole time that we were going down, that foundation, everything that was earning, all of that yield that we earned when it was going sideways, now your portfolio is on steroids, baby. Because as the markets pump, you're getting price appreciation on those bags you built that you might not have in liquidity pools. Your full range positions are going up in value. Your lending positions, you're getting full price appreciation because you still own those assets. So any Bitcoin, any Ethereum, anything that you're lending out, you're still getting price appreciation, full price appreciation. Plus you are earning yield the whole time. Plus you're still earning yield. Why are you not in DeFi? I'm telling you, this is a no-brainer if you do it right, if you build your portfolio right. So with that, if there's not any more questions, let's see. Yep, if there's not any more questions, by all means, please, again, we don't ask for any money ever. We don't get paid in any way whatsoever for doing this content. The only thing I ask is go to DeFi Crypto and Airdrop, no S, on YouTube and follow us. That's it. That's all I ask. And when you do, if you're new, here's the DeFi Academy. Episode 1, DeFi Explained. Be the bank, keep the profits. Episode 2, hot and cold wallets. Basically, how to use hot and cold wallets to interact with DeFi protocols. and do test transactions and stuff like that so that you don't send your money into oblivion. Ultimate DeFi Toolbox. This is where I go over, the DeFi aggregators, and I go through DeFi Llama and Dex Screener and show you how to find ranges and, the ways that I find liquidity pools. This is all about finding liquidity pools. Again, episode 4 is DeFi aggregators. It's all about VFAT, Beefy, different, platforms like that just put everything in one place. You can get to all the platforms in VFAT. You can get to all of these platforms all in one. Wait for it to pop up. Come on, you can do it. So you have all of these chains and all these protocols. And they're all the liquidity pools are here. So you got Velodrome, Uniswap, QuickSwap, Shadow, SwapX, WagMe, Oku, SushiSwap, PancakeSwap, Camelot, BaseSwap, Aerodrome, HyperSwap, and KittenSwap. Some of these I've never heard of. But all those liquidity pools are accessible to you on this one platform and all of these chains. So it's just a one-stop shop with the added functionality. So, and then after that, I do another deep dive. I did one in the past, but a lot had changed. So I did another deep dive on Aerodrome and a tutorial on how to use it. And I get into locks. I get into the flight school bonus, all the details of how to boost your flight school bonus, the do's and the don'ts, all of those things. If you're interested in those locks, highly suggest you watch that episode. And then, of course, VFAT, VFAT IO. I did a whole episode on VFAT. And then I just got done with the difference between a full range, and a ranged liquidity pool. I get into all the details on it. And then, of course, there's this one that you're watching right now. So with that, thank you all for supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it. It really, really helps to grow the channel so that we can get the word out there and really just help people to change their lives. I know things are hard right now. There's a lot of people out there that are struggling to pay the bills. They're living off credit cards. They're struggling to put food on the table. DeFi is potentially a way that you can churn some of that around. Learn DeFi, start small, start safe. Don't go deep. Start with lending and full range pools and staking. Start growing it's basically a high interest savings account, and grow it. Get to where you're making a couple of extra $100 a month. That might not seem like a lot. A couple $100 a month puts a lot of gas in your tank. It pays for a lot of groceries. It might pay your electric bill and keep the lights on. Don't get discouraged. Stick with it. Join the Discord. We're here to help. I promise you, I am not here to shill, take advantage, or try to get you to buy whatever project that, I'm in so that I can cash out. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you get into DeFi. I just want to share what I learn so that if you do want to, you have the ability and the knowledge to do it properly. And with that, thanks again. Veteran Crypto out.